Hello, hello. Well, hello, hello. It has been a while since I've done a live. I used to do them a lot on my old account or whatnot, but been very busy or whatnot. Trying to find employment in these times is very difficult, and just all the issues that go on and whatnot. But today's or tonight's live, I always have a lot on my mind, a lot that I'm either dealing with, going through, and just information constantly that for years I've been constantly learning. And, as if you've seen the title, it's called Conspiracies or Truth. I just want to take a little time to just speak some truth to things. We live in a world where anything that is outside of the narrative, especially that deals with exposing secrets, is seen as a conspiracy theory, and you're seen as crazy as a result. So, I just want to speak to that. Usually they used to say back centuries ago that when someone, calls you crazy, is because you know too much. You know what is true, and it's the worst type of thing to call someone. Now if you're really out there, and you're immoral and you're, on vulgar type of things, and that's a different story. But when you know a lot of things, you have a lot of experience dealing with things, and your eyes are opened, for years people have exposed the government, and it is very true. I will say that the government is every bit behind the conspiracies. But these conspiracies go back thousands of years. It goes back to the beginning of time. We are not alone in this world. We are in the physical realm, but there is the invisible realm where disembodied spirits dwell. And when you die, it has always been the case that whenever someone leaves their physical body, the only thing that died was your body. But you are spirit. Your makeup is supernatural. The difference between us and disembodied spirits is that we don't have the supernatural abilities that they have. So, we're pretty much at their mercy. So, but it seems to be one of the hardest things usually to get people to accept and believe, is that the supernatural exists. But it does. It's very real. It's more real than what we're physically seeing. And it usually takes a sensitivity to these things that you might discern and feel what's moving around you a lot of times. A lot of times the best time to feel it is when you're asleep, because you're now in your most vulnerable and sensitized state. I never looked at it that way consciously, but recently, when I was listening to certain individuals discussing the supernatural realm and their experiences, they talk about how when you enter the dream world, you're really entering into the supernatural realm. For dreams can really be likened to visions. A lot of times dreams are where we do receive messages, or revelation of things to come. So, but what you are been seeing for some time now is a false awakening, where the powers that be have their agents. And I will say that pretty much all mainstream truthers, people exposing things, are part of they're part of the conspiracy. If you have time, look up a game. It's called the Illuminati card game. It was first published, I believe, in 1982, where they actually, in the card, showed future events, and many of these things have come to pass. Then it was reprinted in 1995. But they're always telling us what they're doing. They just roll it up in science fiction to make you believe it's fantasy. I was just watching an episode of American Horror Story where they're talking about the UFOs and the aliens, and it's just so fitting that everything they're showing in there are things that have happened and that go on. Whether it's the reptilian clone centers that are deep in the deep underground military bases, you can look that up. But a lot of times they don't attack people who expose these things because they've already convinced the populace that none of these things are true. And I kind of have to be careful with what I say and how I say it because we're always being monitored. That is what I'm trying to think of that agency. It's not the CIA, but it's the other one that starts with the N. NSA. We're always being monitored. Whatever phone conversations, whatever we do over the internet, they are monitoring. They have bugs in your light bulbs. They can hear what you're saying. When they wanted everybody to switch over to HD back in 2007, it's because they're monitoring you through your television, your computer, of course. If you leave your camera, if you don't cover your camera, it can be hacked. They need and want to know everything we're doing. They're all about this technology, and as I've been learning and as I've just been seeing for myself, as I'm learning, there's so much technology that is not even out there for the public to know of its existence. But this technology comes to them from interdimensional beings. You know them as aliens or extraterrestrial. Funny thing about it is that these beings, for the most part, they dwell in the Middle Earth. I don't know if you've heard of the Hollow Earth. I'm sure people are familiar with Flat Earth, which it is true, our Earth is flat. But Middle Earth, is it's underground, of course, and it's kind of in between here on the surface and what's known as the abyss, where most souls that die depart. They go to the abyss, which is a place of torment, known in the Christian world as hell. There are actually various realms of this place of torment. Some are even in the what they call outer dimensions or outer darkness, which is in the invisible part of what you would call as outer space. There is so much information out there, and I don't want to be rambling, but I just want to talk about the conspiracies, the agenda to destroy us, and how all your government leaders are in on this agenda. They receive power, they receive fame, they receive their positions of authority from these interdimensional beings who have always preyed upon us. They've been mixing in with our species. People are, if you're familiar with the black-eyed children, there's so much that you would be made to think is too bizarre to be real. But I'm going to tell you that if you listen to the government talking about the alien exposure and agenda, they're going to disclose things. At this point, all they're doing is giving, very like crumbs. They're not giving you any meat because they have to give you little by little. If they tell you too much now, then, it won't really be able to work. They want to, it's funny, they want you to believe that the supernatural doesn't exist, but then they're going to open your eyes and show you with false miracles. Most of these famous people who've been so-called dying for now the past decade or more, they're not really dead. The cloning thing exists. I mean, this stuff is so bizarre because you've been made to believe that the supernatural is not real. But the fact that we exist is can be the truest evidence or manifestation that the supernatural is real. You tell me how life can just exist of its own. And when I say life, I mean a being, a person. It's the highest form of existence. Things are not alive. You look at the trees, and someone had to put that there. But the fact that life can be just exist and produce is of itself showing you that our whole makeup is supernatural. And we've always wanted to connect with that, whether we've consciously known that. The problem is when you receive this enlightenment from the wrong side, they will destroy you. They seek to get inside of you, which you know, most of my life I was a Christian, and so I've experienced seeing people be possessed with spirits. I myself have, throughout years, been attacked by these invisible things in my sleep, or been vexed by them while awake. So I do know, as much as anyone, the existence of these beings. But I just want to deal with just is getting more and more scary with what's going on. How the governments, they use the V thing, you know, and I just opened the door with the Trojan horse, because if you look at it, this whole V thing is now leading to this great reset, and all these other agendas that people for years have been studying and exposing. If you've heard of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, all this, they pre-plan these things. And there's a thing called Event 201. It's still on YouTube, I believe. That if you watch it, it's from 2019 of October, where they were literally saying what they were about to do, which in America hit 5 months later. So nothing is without being planned, but it's going to get more scary. They're flooding all Western countries with some of the worst people from, the world, where there's Africa, the Middle East, South America, and they're bringing them in on purpose, where they are raping Western women. And when I say Western women, I'm saying white women. They create everything about race and in the wrong way, and they're doing everything to take away our freedoms right before our eyes, and most people are not seeing it, and they don't care. But one of the scariest things about this is that they've been mixing in within our species for a while. A lot of them walk amongst us that you won't know are what's called a hybrid or a chimera, which means is these interdimensional beings. A lot of them are grays or the reptilians and whatnot, where the abductions are all about, because a lot of times I don't think most people think about it, and I didn't think about it until really recently. The abductions, what is the cause of the abductions? They're trying to find those that are whose DNA can handle the mixture. So of course they want to abduct women, and they implant, and a lot of times the women, they get pregnant but the baby dies, the miscarriage, because you're trying to mix this DNA with our DNA, and it, for the most part, usually doesn't work. That's why it takes one of their own to do this process. Someone of our species wouldn't have the knowledge to know how to do that. These beings have been doing this for eons to us. They feed off of us. The reptilians literally call us livestock. They feed off of us. They're flesh eating, and they love to eat children, number one, because of the blood. It does something to them. It's like a high. And I know this sounds crazy for those who are not in the know, but I'm just telling you that you need to be prepared for the things that you're going to see, because, like I said, when they get the horse to follow, the analogy is by bit. It's like you're more hungry when you're just getting a little bit of something that tastes real good, and you keep on and keep on and keep on. But if you just give someone a full 5-course meal, they'll get full, right? But when you want someone to continue to follow or continue to digest what you're producing, the best way to do it is give it to them in little small bits and portions, because it constantly builds this hunger. Or like if you take a sip of something, you're real thirsty, you keep on taking the sips, keep on taking, and you find that you'll, in no time, you've probably, have drank a half gallon or something, depending on how thirsty you are. But you're going to hear more stuff. It's like a movie. When they show you in the movies, what they show you in the movie is what they do in real time. And it'll seem like you're in a nightmare, because they're being steered by beings, interdimensional beings with supernatural power that can manifest at any time. They can come into your home, which when these abductions happen, they usually get people when they're asleep. All types of things are going on around you. And then you have the Satanists. You have the lower level who don't believe in anything supernatural. They just believe in the doctrine, which is basically do as thou wilt, which Aleister Crowley, he coined that phrase, which If you look at all your Hollywood celebs, they wear the shirts, and you don't understand what they're really saying and how they're involved in these things, such as Freemasonry, Satanism, direct Satanism. All of these cults and beliefs are all satanic, but some of them don't acknowledge themselves as such. You have the Luciferians and you have the Wiccans who do not see themselves as Satanists. Wiccans because they worship these demigods and other gods, but they don't understand that above these so-called gods is this character who has the title of Satan, because Satan is really a title, which means someone who opposes or rebellious. So they all fall under the umbrella. It's just like with Freemasonry. You have to just be in a religion to join, but it's really an umbrella, So, but you're gonna start seeing more and more scary things. Things have been going on for the longest time that are very scary, but a lot of times it happens in other countries. And in America, people believe that they can't be touched, but they don't understand that we've been getting touched for the longest time. We're literally seen as cattle, and it's so heartbreaking because the way they destroy and murder us daily, abductions, taking little children. Our governments have treaties with these interdimensional beings that I say the hardest thing for me is knowing what's being done to the children. Satanists have abducted children for the longest time and have murdered, literally ritually sacrificed them in the worst ways. Or our government has to deal with these reptilians to take children to them to feed them so that they will not come up and just run roughshod on us. Is so much going on, and then you have, again, you have the Satanists who not only murder the children and murder adults as well, which to me the worst thing is the murder and the sexual perversions of what they do to children, such as putting them in snuff films. And I'll tell you that, as I've learned, that our politicians at the highest level are involved in running the pedophile child sex rings, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, who puts the drugs, the guns, and all this stuff in our communities. The destruction of our society with pornography. Men are naturally already, just prone to be, worthless and garbage. And when you flood them with porn nonstop, you're constantly just deteriorating them. And usually the opposite sex, they are so weak emotionally and, programmed to feel that they need a man and a man's love that, and also being rebellious, that young girls run away from home and they get into stuff like prostitution. They get into things destructive like that, and pornography and drugs. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest ways that the young girls and women get into prostitution and pornography is through drugs. They meet a pimp who gets them turned out on drugs, and then they start, whoring them out, have them tricking for them, making money. What you'll find out is our government, they're behind all this. The crime syndicate, the underworld, the satanic, everything, because our government leaders are all Satanists. And they're undercover, but when you know and you follow, you start to see the signs. A lot of our government leaders are reptilians as well. That means that you have different processes. So you have one where they impregnate a woman and she gives birth to a child that's a hybrid. But there's also what goes on in the reptilian cloning center, where they take very small little baby reptiles, like you see small like lizards, and they have this type of gun thing where they shoot it. They shoot the reptilian into the person's body through their eye. And so I know it sounds crazy, but if you've seen a lot of famous people, Alex Jones, the Queen of England, and others, David Bowie, where they have this, their left eye, underneath the left eye is real swollen, black or red, like someone punched them in the eye. Well, that's because they finally crossed over and had a reptilian put in them. So what happens is that reptilian a lot of times starts to manifest through them. You start to see the sharp teeth, or this tongue flick there. Their tongue flicks out a lot, or their eyes literally change. There is a lot of video footage captured. You can go on YouTube and find it. George Bush Sr. is one of the most famous ones, where he's looking into the camera and you see in between his eyes, underneath his forehead, something flickering, like another eye, and then you actually see his pupils change colors to the same color as, like, say, a crocodile's eyes. Like, it'll change and then it'll change back, and it kept doing that. I've seen people, famous people, Denzel Washington's wife, her tongue, she just couldn't keep it in, just flickering like a lizard. I mean, these things are going on in plain sight. And like I said, as I've learned about, as I've been studying the occult and how the satanic world operates, what they do in movies is, what they show you in movies is what happens in real life. And it's like we're living in one giant big nightmare, not just a mere movie. And sadly, we're going to start seeing so much more take place that would just scare the hell out of you. You know, a lot of people are already seeing people manifest these spirits in them. And then let me tell you, it's much worse than what you see in movies. You know, I've witnessed on numerous occasions, I'm going to say at least 3 or 4 or 5 occasions of women while I was in church being possessed with these spirits. And the first 2 times were the worst. I mean, it was something literally like out of a movie. I myself have physically wrestled disembodied spirits many times, as they would like to jump on me at night, you know. And I still deal with that on a, you know, to a lesser extent now than before. But for almost 20 years, my life has just been taken over by this stuff. You know, I literally live this stuff every second of every minute of every hour. And if I didn't have the help I have, there's no way I would be sane and to be able to carry on, because when that realm invades your life, it's unlike anything else. You know, it takes time learning how to battle and fight, you know, and there's always still more to do. But I just want to, you know, just touch on that you're going to see in time that the conspiracies were not just conspiracy theories, but that they were true, these agendas. You know, and they'll let some stuff go out over the airwaves and be said, and they'll debunk it and act like the person is so crazy and stupid. But I would say, why do you have to put so much energy into doing that if something is a lie? This stuff is way too real to just ignore, and it's just going on all around us. You is to the point, and I've learned this in my own personal life, that you cannot trust anybody, you know. The only way you will be able to trust anyone is if they truly prove themselves to you, you know. And when you go through the toughest times with someone, that's when you see who everyone really is, you know. And we've been headed in that direction for the longest time, but with this V thing going on, I'll say that it's brought the worst out of people. It's caused family members to turn against family, and they've done that on purpose because they have set, you know, this thing that those of us who won't get it are somehow terrible and criminals, and we're a danger to everyone else. But they never tell you about all the people who are dying and are getting these diseases and stuff. It's this irreversible, you know. So it's so much going on, you know. Like I would tell you that they put harmful stuff from these interdimensional beings into stuff like medicine, into stuff like food. And I think right now it's kind of like, it seems like it's the storm, but I still think this is the calm before the storm. Remember Donald Trump saying that about 4 or 5 years ago? He knew what was coming because he's part of it. I've seen videos of him manifesting that he has these beings inside of him as well. See, it's funny how everything that is hidden in, you know, secrecy will be brought out in the light. Yeah, another funny thing I always, you know, because I always say that, you know, the truth is what will always win, and it win out always. It seems like it's impossible, and they want to paint this narrative to us because at any time they can change this, you know. They have us on lockdown, and Australia is getting it worse than anybody. I think it's terrible what they're doing to those people. But I think right now is the exercise, like Mike Pompeo said last year, that we're in a live exercise. I think right now, from what I've been hearing and what I've been seeing personally as well, is that they're extracting data. They're seeing if we're ready for them to now really move in on us. Look how we're losing our freedoms every day. I love how when I look at a lot of different people's videos and they always reflect on the movie they live, where when you put on the glasses, you could see, you know, that they were amongst us and who was and who wasn't, you know, and how he had that epic fight with his with the black guy, Keith David, in order to get him to see what he was saying, that he wasn't crazy. He stumbled upon something that he would have never believed and known was real, and instead of him selling out like a lot of those of our species, he chose to fight him, and even died in the end. But that movie was like, it was like a portent or an omen of what's to come. How many people will actually believe the truth? How many people are willing to research these so-called conspiracy theories and then pay attention? They also refer to movies like The Matrix, where he had the choice of red or blue pill. And people have worn out that analogy, but it's still true. It's like, who dares to take the chance and do what a true scientist would do? Let the data speak for itself. Don't tamper with it. Don't put your biases on it. If you truly want to know if something's real, search it out in the right way. See, really go out there and study, research, find out, and just pay attention. Listen to what your politicians are saying. Listen to the double speech. Watch them. Because I'm going to tell you, in time, you're going to start seeing them manifest that they are not our species anymore. For those who were born in our species, they have mixed themselves with these beings. And and it's impossible that I could do anything, nor would I ever think, and be vain to think that I can cause something to happen. But I just want you to know for yourself, because most people are so blind that they're just being taken by stuff and just not researching, not knowing. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to know real news, don't listen to the mainstream media at all. They lie, even when they tell you the truth. You're going to have to research and find things on the internet. And of course, you have to be careful with that as well, because they're everywhere. They have their spies everywhere, and all they have to do is sow seeds of fear and doubt. And those of your family, in your own family, will start to turn against you if you start to see the truth of the conspiracy, the agenda, in other words. None of this is coincidence. It's funny how this so-called, V, or this sickness, so-called, that they call a pandemic. It's funny how this opened the door for things like a reset, a great reset, in the destruction of countries, especially Western countries, and values and morals, and how they're throwing homosexuals on your children, transgender on your children, sexualizing your children, how they're trying to make laws where it's okay for them to date someone who's a 14-year-old child. It's just like the destruction, the depravity, and it's like this went on in Rome, it went on in every great civilization. And it's a known fact that whenever they allowed this perversion into countries and civilizations, they fail. They eroded from within. And it's just heartbreaking, because this has already been going on for the longest time. When you look at these children today, they don't at all look like what you've known as children. For those of us who are of age, I'm close to 40 years old in a couple of months. So living in this time now, and things were, I think, in one way more dangerous when I was growing up, with the gang violence, and people were a lot more dangerous back then. You're dealing with a different group today. The danger is because they're so lost and blind. Our politicians have given them a license to be so immoral that teachers do no longer have the rights to discipline children. The school district, parents can no longer truly discipline their kids. And I'm not talking about abuse, I'm talking about true discipline. They are literally taking over and becoming the parents of these children. These children are now becoming more rebellious. You can't even work around high schoolers or college students because of how terrible they are. This has been the most immoral time in modern history, and it's only getting worse, and it all ties in. the abundance of people turning to Satanism, calling it witchcraft, but it's really Satanism, you know. These kids conjuring, they're playing these games, what is it? There's the Slender Man game and all these other games, these rituals, satanic rituals. And in every country you'll find has them, or they might call them urban legends. They're conjuring up spirits. Witches or Satanists are conjuring up spirits, sending them on people they don't like, which is what they've always done. This whole coming out thing, the agenda. I want you to look up something called the Gay Manifesto. I remember the guy, his first name is Michael. I forget his last name, Michael Swift. But he talked about how they were coming for us. They were going to rape your boys, your men, and every straight man will be tried in courts. They were run by gay men and would become invisible, disappear. That if we called them names and didn't want to become like them, they would kill us and then rape our corpse. See, as all these things they all line up. We're truly living in, a scary movie. This world is truly ruled by this satanic figure, and with all his minions spread out, it's like a spider with all the different legs, or I got an octopus with all the different tentacles or whatnot, and it's just that you have to be able to connect the dots and see this, and I would say before you start to just look at things, you need to really become a student. I've been studying these things for now over 13 years, 13 and a half years, and before I started studying, my life was just overtaken by this. I had a curse put on me, a satanic curse put on me, and for now almost 18 years I've been living under that curse. So I know that most people don't believe these things are real. They're very real, so you just have to be very cautious of what you do, who you're around, who you know, because, and I don't say that for you to fear people, but I say that for you to be wise. You have a lot of Satanists around you, different forms of Satanism, but the truest Satanist is the one who does conjure up spirits from the abyss, the one who not only evokes them, which is sends them out on you, but the one who invokes them into their self. This is how witches get their ability supernaturally. This is how magicians, this is like supposed to be a secret, but magicians, when they sign this treaty or this pact to get powers to be famous, that's what they're doing, and they always have to give their soul over. The most famous people in Hollywood have to sign these things if you want to get in the music industry, especially. And many times they take the person real fast. They don't let them live a long life. It was very big in the rock and roll world. You're seeing it going on in the hip hop world today. But I just, I'm going to try to end this here soon because I can be very long-winded. But, as I'm seeing it more and more, and it seems like it's just closing in, especially on me personally. But I'm also seeing it affecting the whole world, And I would just tell you, be watchful, because you're going to start seeing more and more scary things, and that fear is in itself going to cause a lot of people to break and give in to things and react the wrong way. It'll make you lose your mind. And I can speak from experience that when I first had this stuff done to me years ago, almost 20 years ago, it messed me up so bad, like mentally, because I had never dealt with that directly to that extent. And I could see something was going to happen to me because, things like little by little, but I could see I was showing visions and I could feel it. I've always been sensitive spiritually to supernatural things, so I could see that something very big was going to happen to me. But when it happened to me, I had no idea, and that my whole life would change. I've had a lot of good at the same time, but you have to keep fighting when stuff like that. Another term is someone hexed you. Hexa is how you say witch in Scandinavian languages. So that's where that word hex. But basically, they put a curse on you. They mark you for death. And I will overcome and survive this. But when you do have things like that happen to you is real. You know, if you've never encountered the supernatural realm invading your life and attacking you and opposing you, it'll mess you up in the very beginning. And usually most people never come back from that and are either murdered or they will take their own lives. Or they will get possessed by these beings who will literally destroy them and drag them down, drag their soul to the abyss. So I know I'm touching on things that may sound crazy to most people, and I can handle that. I can deal with that. I've always been an outcast my whole life, so that doesn't bother me. I love that. I dare to be an individual. I dare to think for myself, and I dare to allow my thinking to be not based on an opinion, but on truth. I allow the truth to dictate my life, what is true, and therefore how I see and think. So I would just say that. Just be watchful. Be careful, protect your children. Do not let the government get in and control your children and brainwash your children. Fight for your children. If you really love them, fight for them. Fight for your own mind and your own sanctity. Because things are constantly changing every single day. They're coming up, they're trying to find more and more ways, and I think they're going way too early. I really believe that. They're going a lot earlier than they would have normally, and then what I see as something happened supernaturally that has scared them, and that's why they're trying to speed up the process of what they have been planning to do. And they are well behind schedule, but at the same time, they're moving. The movers and shakers are going crazy. Like it all ties in together. The economy, the bankers control the economy. The whole world economy are controlled by the bankers. No economy will crash on itself. It has to be crashed by entities who are controlling it. So none of this is happenstance or a coincidence. If the bankers want to really they want to make the West like third world countries. They want to remove the middle class so that it's only rich and poor. I've been learning this now for some time, and I'm seeing that. When they brought this thing in and these mandates for this they destroyed small businesses and are still destroying them. They're doing everything unconstitutional, and they're just doing everything that is unlawful in the true law, which is morality. So things are definitely getting darker, and it's going to continue to increase, which is why you need to fight for your sanity. You need to fight for your soul. You really do. You need to understand that we're not alone, and that we are seen as food. They are heartless. They have no remorse. If they can kill children and laugh about it and put it in snuff porn films, when I really learned about that, that broke me down. It has broken my heart so much. And one of the hardest things for me is having all that pain on the inside and not being able to release it. The only, as far as the pain, what I feel in that pain is the utmost rage and hatred and just darkness and evil, which is true justice. That's how you should feel when you see these things being done to people. And it's just sad because this is what they spend their time, is plotting our destruction, our lives. We're not in control of our lives. And if people actually knew what was going on, they would have no choice but to oppose, which is why they want to murder anyone who knows the truth and speaks the truth. You take a risk every time you say things like this over the internet. But my heart is just so sensitive, and that's a strength, it's not a weakness, because I'm always touched by people's sorrow and pain. And if someone else is being done wrong, I can't just live and be peaceful, because that hurts me. And to not be able to do anything to stop it and to help them. What I tell you, probably one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, that just breaks me down so much is people being raped. And the rape happens all the time. It is so frequent that you'd be surprised. And that children are constantly being raped. And I've learned that the CPS system is one of the biggest entities that does that. You know, our government is so filthy, so one of the worst, if not the most wicked government, or immoral and perverse government in this world. And I will say UK is probably outdoes us, but they're equally bad. The child trafficking, the sex trafficking, what they do to these kids, and I've heard about it in satanic rituals, how there was a big thing in the 80s and 90s of abducting and a lot of missing children. And I remember as a child growing up in the 90s, the early mid 90s, every day in the mail you would get this thing called Advil Ask, Have You Seen Me? And it was always little kids that were disappearing. And I always thought it was weird, but of course I didn't know these things now. And then recently I found out truly what that was, that, and they're still abducting kids today. But during that time, it was on such a level you couldn't, and especially if you had a beautiful child with blonde hair, blue-eyed child, they would take your child, and you never see that child, and they would rape that child in the most gruesome manners, and they would satanically, ritually sacrifice that child in the worst ways, which they torment you for the longest time before they actually kill you. And they would drain all the blood out these children. I mean, I wish I could cry. And I'm not numb, it's just that for right now, given everything I'm dealing with personally, it's kind of like I have to just be able to push, because I couldn't cry enough tears. I couldn't even imagine what a 3-year-old child goes through, not understanding why this is being done to them, wanting their mom or their father, wanting to go home, and just being raped and slaughtered like a pig. It'll make you very dark, and not in the wrong way, but in the right way. And I know that most people, they're so self-righteous that they can't get with that, because they believe that you should just forgive any and everything. And they don't understand what the darkness truly in its accurate definition really means. True darkness is reserved for the unjust, not for those who are just. There's a difference between mere sheer violence and justice, True violence, this legitimate violence, is justice. But it's just, my heart is very heavy because of the pain that people all over the world have to go through. You will never know the stuff that's being done to people, what they have to deal with, and it's beyond heartbreaking. It's an understatement. And the fact that more and more people are going to be destroyed every day because of this. And I don't think that I am going to make a difference and change anybody, nor am I seeking to do that. I want you to have the power to know for yourself, so that at least you have that chance, But I would just say, look into these things. Please research. Don't trust what anyone says. Vet it. Trust in the truth. The problem isn't when someone is trying to make you trust and believe in them. No, trust and believe in the truth. And let someone prove to you that they are pure, that they truly are pure and moral, therefore they are worthy or just to say things like what I'm saying. So, but that's, wrapped up in a shorter version what I will say for this live. As crazy as it might seem to most people, is as real can be. And a lot of times many people lose their lives or become casualties because they did not believe something that was true, that was necessary for them to know personally. And had they allowed themselves to at least research and find out and study and test people and test things, they would have had a chance of not being a victim, not losing their life. And anybody who calls herself trying to expose things, that should really be their aim, not for popularity, because stuff like this you hate having to say. You hate that it's true, that it's actually happening and happening, and that it will continue to happen. So if they don't care about that in your soul, and that your soul be kept from this destruction, then they're not real. They're there for their own selves or for their own agenda, and they don't care about you. It doesn't bother them that people are being murdered and tortured and raped and just terrorized, you know? So, but that's all. Everyone enjoy your night.